Tony Marion, the Vice President of Sales at Ethos Systems. It's my pleasure today to be joined by a couple gentlemen from hh2. We have Britton Bauer, who's going to be doing your presentation today, and also on the line we have Kevin Hadley, who's their Vice President of Sales. Between he and I, we'll be monitoring the chat box for any questions you have. So I do see everybody is muted, which is great. And just as a quick overview, we're going to be looking at the document flow product from hh2, which is entirely cloud-based. The relationship between hh2 and Ethos Systems is a long-standing relationship, almost as long as hh2 has had a relationship with Sage. And just as a quick highlight for the hh2 folks, we do have a mix of Sage 100 and Sage 300 clients on the call today. So again, if you have any questions throughout the course of this presentation, please go ahead and post those in the chat, and I will address those as we can. And then again, we'll have an open Q&A at the end with schedules permitting in the time. So with that, Britton, I turn it over to you, buddy.
Excellent. Thank you, Tony, and appreciate our partners at Ethos Systems and giving us this opportunity and this platform to present to their customer base. So thank you, and all those that are taking time out of their day to join us. We really appreciate the time and the interest in our platform. So we're going to cover a couple kind of high-level items about how hh2 works as a platform, and then we're going to spend the majority of the time looking at the product, kind of going start to finish with how this product can help streamline your AP processes. If there are questions, we love and encourage an interactive presentation here, so don't be shy. We appreciate that option to be able to speak to any questions or thoughts that come up as we go through the presentation. As mentioned, my name is Britton Bauer. I work on our sales team at hh2, and I'll be conducting the presentation here moving forward. So a couple of things about hh2. We're a fully hosted cloud solution, and what that means is all of our platform is available on a number of different devices. So whatever devices you're using, whether it be a desktop or laptop, phone or tablet, hh2 has a number of interfaces that can be used anywhere you have connectivity. So we'll talk about and actually look at some of these interfaces throughout the call today. We have native apps for both iOS and Android phones and tablets that we can look at as well. Now, one of the main things that we like to cover is a little bit about how our integration works. For those of you that are on Sage 100 or Sage 300, hh2 integrates directly with those accounting systems. And what that means is when we set you up with any of our products, we install a small program on your accounting system environment that allows us to pull all the data out of there and up to our cloud-based platform. So jobs, cost codes, employee information, AP data, your vendors, all that comes directly from the accounting system. Once we have that information, our system checks for the latest and greatest information, whatever changes or updates you've made, and we continually update our platform. So that's always working, always available, and then is going to be on our cloud platform. Once we have that data, anywhere you have connectivity using the devices I mentioned previously, you can use hh2. So whether you're out on the job site, in the office, on the go, or working at home, hh2 is going to be there and available for you. Now for today's product, we're going to be walking through a few different things here. So this is kind of a quick agenda. We're going to walk through the entire product and how it works. We are going to do this in a live demo, meaning everything we're showing you is live, nothing's pre-recorded. It will function in this manner for our customers, not just in a demo environment. We're going to start the process by talking about our vendor invoices and how we acquire your vendor invoices into our system. We're then going to walk through the approval workflow and how to set that up, along with what your approvers and reviewers of invoices can accomplish in hh2. Some other pieces that are also part of this product that we'll touch on lightly today is the ability to capture company credit cards and reimbursements within the hh2 platform. So those are available, and you can use all three: invoices, credit cards, and reimbursements, or you can just pick whichever areas of this product are going to be helpful. So I always like to stress that you don't have to use everything. You can kind of pick and choose, as these are all part of the product that we offer.
Hey, Britton.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
I'm just going to chime in here real quick. Just as a reminder, I know Britton's probably said this, but I want to kind of make sure everybody is aware. Everything that you're going to see today will be included in the system. And we know that there's other solutions out in the marketplace today that might charge you separate prices for either different users or different areas of the product or different functionality, such as the OCR capabilities. But I know Britton will probably re-emphasize this as he goes through, but as you see the product today, everything will be included if you subscribe to this product from hh2. So have that in mind as Britton goes through the demonstration today.
Excellent. Always a great point there. Appreciate that input there, Kevin. Now, the final thing we're going to look at slide-wise, and then I promise we'll get into some more active areas of the presentation, is looking at our first step of the process for our vendor invoices. Now, vendor invoices can be acquired from a number of different sources within hh2. We can monitor an email folder or an inbox for one or multiple email accounts, so that anyone that gets an invoice sent to them, they can drag and drop into a folder, or we can monitor a general AP email and pull those invoice images into our platform automatically. So a lot of companies that have that just want to streamline that process. Well, if you have invoices that are being scanned in because they're sent in the old-fashioned way in snail mail, you're able to upload and scan those in, and we can monitor a folder that those get scanned to, or if they're scanned to the email, of course, we can pull those in as well. So those are automatic. Once they hit those locations, those invoice images are then pulled into hh2. In addition, we have a native app that we'll talk about today. As you can, we'll be able to see the ability to upload your receipts from a mobile device. And then we also have uploading right from our web browser. We recently added a new feature that is not listed here, but it's a vendor portal where a vendor can actually log in from a web browser, and they can just upload invoices directly into our system for you. So that's another option that's available. And again, those are all included, and you can determine which ones are going to be useful and needed for your company. So that's where we're going to start our process. We're now going to go ahead and transition to actually look at the document acceptance queue, where we actually store all those acquired invoices. Now, to get there, I'm going to go ahead and pull up over my web browser, and we're going to take a look at hh2 on the web. Now, when you log into hh2 here, I can make my screen a little bigger here for those that need a little bit better view. hh2 has a unique website that we give to our customers where you'll log in. I'm logged in as an AP admin, and I'm going to start by clicking on the AP icon on the left-hand side here of my screen. You will note that there's other icons that are available for other products that we offer, and just know that you won't see products that you don't have with hh2. And today we're focusing on our document flow or our AP product. Now, under our document flow main menu, we're going to start at the top left corner, looking at our acceptance queue where documents come in, again, from those different acceptance resources. So in here, every document that comes in is going to show up and be broken out separately. So some are one-page invoices, some have multiple pages. I can scroll through the ones that have been brought into the platform. Well, for today's demo, I'm going to go in and just upload one right from my web browser, browse out to my document, go ahead and grab one of those and upload it. So again, regardless of where they've come from, they're going to come to what I call this grand central station of our invoices. And we don't know a ton about the invoices at this point of the process. The whole point of this is to go in and organize and make sure all the pages for the invoice are grouped together and grouped appropriately. So if I scroll down to the bottom, the 8-page invoice that I just pulled up has been brought into the system, and I could say, you know what, page 1 through 5 is one invoice, and page 6, 7, and 8 are a separate invoice. and I could group those and then click the thumbs up approval to say these are all together as one invoice. So if you need to split them up and divide them, we can support that. I'm going to go ahead and accept the entire 8 pages, click the thumbs up approval. I can reorder the pages if I need to, and then click accept. In addition, if I need to look at a full image of these, I can double click on any of these, see a full image of that invoice before I go through and accept it, adjusting the orientation if I need to, and then saving it. Okay, so that's document acceptance. Very simple, organizing the pages so that when we get to data entry, we can add some detail for that particular invoice. All right, so Kevin, is there anything you want to add? I know sometimes you have some pieces that you like to add on some of these sections, so I'll check before we move on.
You know, I always like to jump in on these presentations, Britton, so thanks for asking. So sometimes when we do these presentations, we get people who might ask the question, can I assign different people in the company to do the document acceptance? Because I might have some individuals, maybe lower paid individuals, that just simply review the documents, say that they're okay, group them together, and then somebody else in the company might go to that next phase that you're going to actually do the coding on that document. Did that make sense?
Yeah. So if we move over to the next step here of data entry, you might have different permissions you want to assign to different users. So as Kevin mentioned, if someone just needs to have access to one of these steps, we can separate that out within the platform. Is that what you're going for? Just to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, that's great.
So I'm going to go ahead and move over to data entry. Now, data entry is where we're actually going to add more detail about these invoices. And our data entry queue is going to look a little bit different. Each one of these little tiles represents a separate invoice that we've accepted. So in my system, I do a number of demos and testing here. So we have a number of invoices in the system that are waiting to be routed for review and approval. I'll quickly mention the ones that are highlighted in red. Those are ones that got rejected back to data entry for maybe for whatever purpose. I did some for some testing purposes, but just so you're aware, there's a reason those are highlighted in red. I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom, and we're going to go ahead and take a peek at that 8-page invoice that I routed through earlier. I have these being filtered from oldest to newest, so that's why that's at the bottom. I'll go ahead and click right on that. Now, in our data entry detail screen here, we're able to see a lot of information. We're able to see the actual vendor invoice itself. On the right-hand side here, we have all of our header fields. And behind the scenes, hh2 actually OCRs every document that comes in. That's included in the product. You don't pay extra for it. And what that allows us to do is allows us to read all of the images that come into hh2. Now, over here on the right-hand side where we have our header fields, the header fields that will be available will be based on your setup in your accounting system. So we look to see which ones you're using and simply show those here. You'll notice that the vendor field is already pre-filled. And that happened because we synchronize all the vendors from your accounting system. Our system OCR'd and then checked to see if we could find the vendor. We were successful and we're able to grab that. And that used some of the vendor contact information to do so. Now, some of these other fields have not been matched up, and that's no problem at all. I can just simply create a quick template and say the invoice number for this vendor is found right here. And by doing that, we allow you to create a quick template to find all the data moving forward. So once you've done this one time for each vendor, we'll be able to automatically capture all of that detail. So up here at the top, if I click on the auto capture button, everything that I've already mapped to will actually pre-fill because I've already done that for this particular vendor. So very quick, very easy. I'm going to go ahead and update the description here. We'll go ahead and put our friends at Ethos and our date here for our webinar.
Hey, Britton, while you're doing that, I have a question that somebody, again, might ask about that invoice number. what if I have a duplicate in the system? Will I be notified if, and how does that work? Will I be notified if I've got a duplicate invoice in hh2?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So in hh2, we do check for duplicates to make sure that we don't have that same invoice already in the system. But we also synchronize all historical invoices from your accounting system to make sure that something you might have hand entered or might have input into the accounting system before using hh2 isn't input in twice. So that's something that we do check for, and you'd actually get a big error up here at the top if this was a duplicate invoice, and we will prevent you from moving forward at that point. So great question. Now, once we're happy with the header information here, the final step before we route for approval is to do some initial coding. So down here in our distribution fields, these again pull from the accounting system based on the different coding fields you use, and we can start coding. Now, every company is different based on what different coding fields are going to be helpful. Now, as Tony mentioned at the beginning, we have a mix of some Sage 300 and Sage 100 customers on the line here, and just want to highlight a few differences of terms. We refer to a purchase order or like a subcontractor commitment as a commitment in our system. I know Sage 100 calls a lot of those just purchase orders, but just be aware that we synchronize those up and we just call them a commitment because they're committed cost. And what you can do with an hh2 if you happen to use commitments a lot is you can just start typing and find the commitment number or name that are set up for that vendor. So we synchronize those up and we can simply start typing and choose it that way. I'll go ahead and further code this and add a commitment item because this commitment's broken out into multiple items. And I can use my selector here instead of typing, and I can see all the commitment items set up on that. Now, once I've coded this to my commitment and commitment item, the job, cost code, category, information as set up on that particular purchase order or commitment will automatically pre-fill for me. And I can even click on this little information icon to get some detail about that commitment and the financials, what the original amount was, to make sure I understand where we're at on the financial side of things. Okay, so that's all available here and will also be available later in the approval process. Now, let's say I'm a company that doesn't code to commitments, or I do that very rarely. I could go in and I could just code this to a job. So if I just edit some of these here and I just coded it to a job, I could either have the job listed there, I could start typing the job name or number, and I could just code to the job here as well, or overhead account, equipment, etc. Once I'm happy with my coding here, I can collapse this down and I can route this through a workflow for approval. But maybe I want to split this out into multiple jobs or cost codes. We do support that here or later in the process as well, so I wanted to mention that. So that's the coding step. Moving on to the workflow, this is where we're going to have a customized set of approval steps where you can determine who's going to approve these invoices and why. So within hh2, where it says workflow, there's a little drop down where I can choose from the different workflows that we've set up for approval. And this is something that hh2 helps you set up. And we're going to cover these in a little bit more depth here in just a moment. Before I do so, I want to quickly mention that we have a little override button that we can pull up, that little gear icon, and that allows us to make a change on the fly to any of our approval steps. Okay, so right here I have 4 different steps for this this particular workflow, and if I needed to add a step on the fly here, I can go in, say, hey, this needs to go to Jeff Wall before it goes to anyone else because maybe it's a funky invoice that we're needing some extra help with. So we can add those on the fly, or for today, I'm going to simply go in and route this through the standard workflow. All right, now that that's routed through, I can go back and start working on the next invoice if that's my job in data entry. Now, before we move on, I want to make sure that there are no questions, so just check to see if there are any questions that have come up in regards to the document acceptance or data entry before we look at the workflow.
None in the chat so far, Britton.
All right. Okay, always like just checking to be safe. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to take you to one of our setup screens by clicking on AP and then going over to our workflow setup. We call this our workflow list. And this is where you can set up all the workflows that you have need for within the system. Now, today we talked about the job manager workflow, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that one. And this workflow has 4 potential steps. And this is actually where you go in to build a workflow. So in this workflow, previously we looked at the override button where I could add a step on the fly, so I have a blank space allowing me to do that. And then I have it going to a project manager, a GL account manager, and then to my AP manager for approval. And then the end of the workflow is when we push those invoices back into the accounting system. Now, let's talk a little bit about these approval actions or steps. So clicking on the project manager here, when I click on that on the right-hand side here, it will give me some detail about why someone's actually going to get an invoice with this particular workflow. And we have a concept called role-based routing, where you can assign a role to your employees and determine what jobs or GL accounts they're responsible for to make sure they get the right invoices. So I've chosen my job manager route type here. We also could choose from a named user, a GL account, an AP group or a group of employees, or my AP manager as our different routing options. And then for the job manager type, I've created different titles for what I call my job managers in my system. Now, a lot of our users will, in the accounting system, list who the job manager is in the accounting system, and we can actually pull that over and assign that to the correct title. So if you guys have a title called project manager, we can pull that data over and automatically assign in hh2 who's responsible for each job. And this lets us more easily determine who needs to receive an invoice. And by using this particular workflow, we don't have to create a workflow for every job or every user. We can have a generic workflow that will simply look at, hey, which project is this currently coded to, and let's route it to the correct person. Now, once we've gone through and set that up, down below here we have permissions of what can they edit, what type of workflow permissions do they have when routing invoices through, and then we even have some custom parameters to make people optional or to require that at that stage of the process everything's coded, because we don't want it to get past there without having all the coding that's required. All right. Now, I was doing a little demo earlier, and I actually added this GL account manager step, so I'm actually going to delete that, and just to demonstrate that you can add and adjust these whenever you need to for your company. Now, this is a very simple workflow. 3 potential activities. It's very linear and simple, but I always like to mention that we do handle very complex routing as well. I won't go into too much detail within that, but if you need to have more exceptions or routing rules, we can route based off of dollar amounts and a lot of other detail in the hh2 platform. But we'll keep this simple for today, as many of our customers keep their routing processes very simple. Okay. Kevin, is there any aspect you wanted to add on our workflow setup here?
No, I think you've covered that very well, Britton. We'll talk a little bit more about other workflows that can be set up as you get into the credit card piece. But no, this is very simple today. And again, those of you who are attending, if you do have more complex approval paths and want to discuss those a little bit more in detail, you'll be able to get a hold of Tony or us, and we're more than happy to do some one-on-ones with you. So I think it's great.
Awesome. Yeah, and going back here, as Kevin mentioned, just while we're here, I've created a number of workflows, some that apply to my vendor invoices, some that apply to employee reimbursements, and some that apply to company credit cards. So you can get quite granular in the types of workflows that you set up. Now, what we're going to do as our next step is we're going to look at reviewing and approving invoices from a user perspective. So this could be a project manager or someone else in the company that's responsible to review and approve invoices. Now, in order to do this, we can do it from a number of devices. So if I wanted to log in from a web browser, from my phone or tablet, we can support all of those interchangeably. For today, just for some variety's sake, we're going to go and start by looking at my phone. So I've gone ahead and shared my phone screen out here. So let me go ahead and slide that over to the screen. And we have my iPhone here. Now, within this product, it's a native app. We do have push notifications that are available so that you can receive an alert when you have an invoice assigned to you. And I'm going to be showing you where I'm clicking with my mouse, but I'm actually going to be performing this with my on my phone here. So I'm going to go ahead and tap right on that app there, and it's going to pull up my invoice queue with all the invoices that are currently assigned to me for review and approval. So I will scroll down to the bottom here as I have my invoice that we routed through earlier from Wheeler Machinery Company. It was coded to that one job, and I'm going to go ahead and tap right on that. If I want to zoom in here, maybe I have less than perfect eyesight, I can zoom in to see some detail from that particular invoice. We can swipe through the different pages. And then up at the top here, we can see our header and distribution. So if I tap on the header information, we can see all that detail here. There's that description that I had keyed in earlier, letting us kind of see that this is the actual invoice that we started with. And then I tapped at the top right to look at my distributions. And it actually pops right into the distribution I had started in data entry. And this user might come in and add the cost code and category detail. Now, when they click into the cost code, they're going to see the cost codes that are set up on that job. And that's, again, pulling from what's set up on that job in the accounting system. So whatever I need to code that to, I can go ahead and choose my cost code. And then the categories that are set up on that cost code will be available based on which categories you're using. Now, if I needed to split this off, I could go back and I could update this and I could split off and have 10 different distributions here coded to whatever items I need as well. Okay, so that's how easy it is to update right here from our phone. Now, down at the bottom here, we have some other actions that we talked about earlier. Of course, I can save it if I'm ready to update it but not approve it. I can approve it. I can manually route it. Maybe this needs to go through a unique approval process. We can manually route it outside the approval process. And anytime you use our manual route, we'll require a comment. And when you route it, it's not going to skip over any approval levels. It's just going to be a sidestep. So it would sidestep over to whoever I route it to, and then once they've handled it, it'll come back to the approval process to make sure we're not going past any of our exceptions that we set up. Okay. Now, at the bottom right corner, just to touch on some of the other actions we have, we talked about some of those earlier in the workflow, being able to perform some different tasks based on the permissions you set up. And then I always like to highlight a couple of these at the bottom here, where we go in and add a note. I'm going to add a note about this. I have a question about this invoice. Go ahead and add that as a note in there, and that will be tied to that moving forward. And then last but not least, we have a log, where I can see a log of where this has been. So for the last 18 minutes that we've been routing this through, we have step-by-step of what's happened to this invoice. Very simple, very easy. Now, for our demo today here, I'm just going to simply go in and save this. I'm not going to approve it yet, because I want to show you what this looks like from a web browser as well. But before we move over and show you the web browser interface, I want to quickly touch on those that might be interested in our credit card piece. And it's very effective to do that right here from our phone. So we're going to go ahead and jump back to my main menu here. And at the top left, we're going to pull up my sidebar menu. And I'm actually going to go in and capture a quick receipt. So this is just a slight detour from our vendor invoices. And maybe I'm a user that has a company credit card and I just purchased something and I want to capture that right here on the fly. I'll simply go ahead and click quick receipt. I have a receipt here on my desk. Our system will look for that, grab the pages, snap a quick picture, go ahead and save that. And then the user will then have the opportunity to go in, fill out the information about that purchase, and then code it. We even have a little OCR button up here at the top right to help with that. Got me the date, the amount, and the saving piece of the Home Depot motto. We'll go ahead and update that description. Click the submit to code. Go ahead and code that just like I would do with any other invoice. Job, cost code, category, or whatever item you have. So very simple, very easy for the user to go in, grab that information, update it here, all from the palm of their hand. Now, once I'm happy with this receipt and its coding, I can simply save it, and the user has now captured some valuable information that we can use later to match up to our credit card purchases. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, because once I'm done here, I'll save it and close, and those receipts are going to go in and just wait to be reconciled with our credit card or our bank statement. Okay, so really simple process there, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. So just be aware, the user can capture that company credit card receipt, and then it will sit here and wait to be matched up. If you happen to be using our reimbursements function, they would simply capture the detail, but submit it as a reimbursement, and it would go through an approval process for that employee to be reimbursed for whatever was purchased and to review the job cost or other detail that was coded. All right, so that's just a quick mention on how we handle receipts in the system from the user perspective, and I'll touch real briefly a little bit later on a couple of other sections. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump out of my phone here, and let's go in and log in as that same user from the web. So I'm going to go to my login screen here. We'll go in and log in as Tom Brooks, the same user I was just logged in on my mobile device, and we'll go ahead and log in. And where it says, welcome back, Tom, there's a quick link right below that to go to my invoices, because that's one of the main things that he does. He goes in and reviews and approves invoices. So I'll go ahead and click right there. Now, on the web here, similar concept. We have all of the invoices that require my attention here in the system. All right, so you can see all those listed out here. Now, we have some filters or search options up here at the top that are available as well, really just depending on what type of items you're looking for. Okay, I'll go ahead and click on the one we're working on today here. And over here on the right-hand side, we have all that header information. I can pull up the notes. There's that note I put in just a couple minutes ago. We have the image itself. We have annotations available, and those are also available on the app. I didn't show that, but that is available. And then we have our coding or distributions. So that's the stuff that I just coded on my app because I had connectivity updated, and I can, again, use both of these interfaces interchangeably. All right, now if I needed to add distributions or make changes, I could do that just like on the phone. It's the same concept. Now, once I'm happy with everything here, I can simply go up and approve the invoice. Once I click the approval, it'll approve that and move me to the next invoice in my queue. All right, so then we kind of go through that same process as updating, going through, and clearing out those that require our attention. Now, while we're here, I want to talk about a couple other nice features that we have built in for our reviewer and approvers. So on the left-hand side here, if I click on my AP menu, we can come into some other sections. One of which I want to focus on is talking about our historical invoices. We call this our invoice inquiry. And as Kevin mentioned earlier, we check for duplicate invoices, and in turn I mentioned that we synchronize all of our historical invoices up from your accounting system. And using this invoice inquiry, you can actually see items that have never been through hh2 for approval, but are available to view that data, so we can see the header and distribution and even payment information in hh2, or a user could see previous invoices that they've approved in hh2. They can use a number of our filters to hone in on what they're looking for. Maybe they have a question about how they coded something from a vendor or on a certain job. They can dig into that detail with all these different filter and sort options, all the way down to our different date fields and even seeing where things are at in the approval process.
Hey, Britton, a quick question there as you go through some of those. Let's say that I'm a project manager. Am I going to see all of the jobs in hh2, all of the invoices, or am I only going to have access to the jobs that I'm assigned to?
That's a great question, Kevin. So within our system, there's a lot of permission-based access. So in the invoice inquiry, your project managers are not going to see every invoice that's ever been in the company. As Kevin mentioned, we're going to have that be limited down to either the invoices they're responsible for, or you could give them access, if wanted or needed, to the invoices for the jobs that they're over. So there's a lot of permissions you can set up to really control what the employees see. Now, if you do happen to come in here, there's a little status that says imported. I can click on one of those to see a historical one that never ran through hh2. And there is no image, but we can see the header, distribution, and payment info right here. So kind of nice to be able to see that. If helpful, that's just a nice little added bonus within hh2 document flow. Now that we've kind of hit on a few features here from the reviewer and approver, let's shift over and log out and log back in as our administrator. And let's talk about some of the things your admin might be doing in the system. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my main menu again here. And in our document section, we can go in and I can review and approve invoices just like I did from that user perspective. We have a really nice aging summary to allow you to focus on things that have been in the system for a long time and really hone in on items that might need your attention. And from this interface, if I click on any of these details here, like if I wanted to look at these 22 invoices for Ace Drywall, it'll actually take me over to another interface called an invoice list, and it will apply a filter to only show me this vendor's information. And we're going to shift over to that invoice list here. Rather than click on this, I'm going to go in and just show you how the invoice list works. Now, the invoice list is an interface for our administrator to come in and see everything that is or has been in hh2 for review and approval. So if I had clicked on that vendor status with that date range, it would have automatically come in here and it would have applied for Ace Drywall and then would have applied a date filter so I can see everything that's in progress and waiting for approval. So very quickly you can hone in on seeing where things are at, or focusing on items that need to get out of our system and into the accounting system. I'm going to go ahead and clear out of that vendor filter. And we're going to go in to my little filter button right here, and we're going to go in and add some additional filters to show you some of the filter function that we have available to make it easy to focus on what you need. So here in our filters, we can filter on a number of items from an administrative perspective. We can filter on our different workflows that are currently being routed through. I can check on a certain user. Maybe Kevin is being a slacker this week and we want to see which invoices are waiting his approval. I can focus on that level, or on a group of employees that have been routed to. And then all the vendor, job, and our different coding fields can also be filtered on. Now coming down here, we're going to stop at status. And status is an important one because it allows us to see where things are at in the process. Invoices that are in data entry, invoices that are in progress or ready to be reviewed and approved. Final review, meaning they've been approved, but they're simply waiting to be pushed into the accounting system. And then exported, items that have been successfully exported from out of the accounting system, or from hh2 into the accounting system. Okay. In addition, if you happen to be using multiple document types in hh2, you can focus on credit cards. Maybe you just chose to use hh2 for credit cards because you have other processes or less of a need. You could just focus on that piece here. Or if you're using all three, again, you can hone in on what you need to focus on. And then even getting as detailed as looking at specific card holders in the system if you're using company credit cards. All right. Down at the very bottom here, we have our date fields, and then we have a payment status if you're looking at historical stuff that have been paid or been exported that are outstanding. And that payment status simply synchronizes up from your accounting system. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and just cancel out of this, and let's go ahead and just search for that invoice from Wheeler Machinery Company that we were routing through earlier. And so down here, right on our fifth line up from the bottom, I can click and see the in progress. I can actually see that this is currently assigned to the admin here. And because I'm logged in as the admin, I have turned on a little quick action that allows me to go ahead and approve it from right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to approve that invoice. And I'm going to jump up and now add a filter for final review, because I'm ready to go in and export these invoices. We've gone through our process and I want to get them out of hh2 and into the accounting system. So I'm going to add that filter. Now, rather than have to go in and click all those buttons every time, we even have the ability to come in and add a saved filter and say, hey, you know what? I just want to be able to click 2 buttons here, and we'll go ahead and just call this final review right there. And I'm going to add that as a common filter. So when I come in, I can just go in and grab that moving forward. So final review status is everything that's waiting to be pushed in. And I can either add other filters to hone in on what I want to push in, or I can select everything I'm looking at, either with the select all or manually selecting them, depending on what I need to do. And the final step to get an invoice out of hh2 and into the accounting system is going to be clicking this batch export button up here. And as long as they're in final review, we'll push those invoices directly into the accounting system so that you can go in and process them for payment and post them to job cost. And what hh2 is going to do is we're going to push them in, and they're ready for those next steps. You will be required to pay and post a job cost like you're doing right now, but everything else is going to be streamlined. It's going to look just like you'd hand keyed that data into the accounting system as far as the header, distribution, and that detail. Now, a couple questions that typically come up at this point. That's great. I currently do that same process. That's great. I can get it in there. But how do I view the image? What other information is available for me? Because hh2 obviously has some other details, the audit trail and other items. Well, within hh2, we push in a link via a little URL link that you can just click on in the accounting system to see the invoice image, to see the audit trail, and any notes that were captured in hh2, so you can see it there. And then, of course, we have that information available historically within the accounting system, or within hh2, so you can see in both places. All right. Now, before we talk about a couple other features that I wanted to mention, and then we can definitely open up for some questions. Kevin, is there anything you wanted to add from this final review step of getting the invoices?
I do. Just real quick, Britton, while you're there, up in the upper left-hand corner, you have some buttons that are called Excel, PDF, and PDF zip. Would you mind just kind of sharing with them if they want to save or print out those documents for any reason? I think it will be helpful for some of those users who say, that's great, you've got the information in hh2. How do I go about, maybe saving this to my own system, etc.?
Absolutely. So a lot of times you might want to be able to compile and report on some of the data. And because we have the data stored here, we make that very easy. So anything that I want to dump down into Excel or the images into a PDF, I can add whatever filters I'd like, select them, and then click on my desired export option. So Excel is pretty simple. It just dumps the data down to Excel. If I click on the PDF here, it will ask me if I want to include the history or that audit trail, and then all the coding and payment details that are available. And when I click to download that, it's going to compile a PDF of all the data that I've just requested there. Okay, so it just pulled that up, and now if I pull up that particular file, I'm able to see the invoice image itself. Scrolling down, here is the header and distribution information for that invoice that was coded in hh2. If it's been paid, the payment information would show up as another section. And then last but not least, we have that audit trail. when the information was brought in and the different steps it took within hh2. And then moving on, next invoice, information, history. There's a credit card receipt here. Kevin loves the Orange Dream Machine. That's his favorite drink, so we had to buy it for him here end of last year. And then we got the coding and everything listed there as well. So very quick and easy. We get this a lot with like billing backup and, hey, I want to compile and I want to store things per job or per vendor. It makes it super easy to compile it, dump it down, maybe you put it into a zip file and make that information available.
Great. So what you're saying is I can either view this information directly within hh2, or if I happen to be in Sage AP and I click on that link, it's going to open up the same information from that link that you just pushed in to accounts payable, correct?
Exactly. And one thing I do like to highlight is there's no login required when you're clicking on our URL link. Because we're a cloud-based platform, you might have someone that's in Sage AP that may not be a user in our system. So just know that it's a view-only window. It's not logging them in hh2, but it does allow them to easily see that data. So that's a very good thing to understand, because we don't want to add extra steps for that process.
Perfect. Let's go to credit cards.
Awesome. So within credit cards, what you'll do once you have your users all trained, they'll capture their receipts, and their receipts just sit in what we call a receipt queue. And the admin, as frequently as they'd like, will be able to come in and they'll be able to go in and import the credit card transactions from the bank. So I'm just going to pull up the screen here. And the transactions might look something like this. You'll get like a CSV or an Excel file from your bank or card issuer, and weekly or monthly or daily or whatever frequency works for your company, you can import your transactions. And this is an important step, because this allows us to make sure that we're actually going to route purchases that were made through the system rather than receipts that were captured. So what we do is when you import your transactions, we look for any matching receipts that users have submitted, and any job cost detail will go along with it. And once we have a match, we match those together, and then we route them through whatever approval process you've set up within our system. Now, let's say, in the inevitable fact, an employee forgets to upload their receipt. Well, if we can't find a match, we just send the purchased information back to the cardholder and say, hey, here's a purchase that needs your information. And they'll have the opportunity to upload the photo of the receipt and to be able and go and encode it, just like I showed earlier. But they're doing it for the actual purchase instead of beforehand. So we handle both sides of that particular workflow. So we walk you through this process, so don't feel like you're going to be overwhelmed with it, and help streamline how the data comes in, and even helping create a format for you to streamline bringing that data in. And after that happens, it acts like any other invoice, because it's something that's getting routed for review and approval. So if I go back to the invoice list here, you'll notice on the left-hand side of my screen here, I have a little icon representing our vendor invoice, credit card, and then I have some for reimbursements as well, if I scroll down far enough here. So very easy to be able to see that, and then it, and for all intents and purposes, is going to be very simple and easy in the system. So that is the credit card process. Any additions you want to add to that, Kevin?
No, I think that's great. I think it's very good.
Awesome. So I think we probably should just kind of wrap up here for any questions, unless you have anything you want to add here. And then I know we probably would love to talk about pricing for a few minutes. So Kevin, do you want to head into pricing or open up for some questions at this point?
Well, let's go ahead and see if anybody has any questions we haven't seen, or I haven't seen anything come in through the chat window. We are definitely happy to answer any of those. And Tony, it looks like you unmuted yourself. Tony, did you want to say anything?
No, nothing to add. Just wanted to say I did get a couple private chat messages, but you're gonna go over that right now. They were just in regards to pricing. I also pointed out to the individuals in the chat where they could also locate that on your website.
All right. Well, let's give you guys a break from my voice here, and let's have Kevin. Would you mind covering pricing?
Absolutely. So Britton is just simply going to go to our website, just as Tony mentioned in some of the private chats. You can go here to our website at any time at just hh2.com. Britton's going over to the products page, so just click on products. And as Britton mentioned, off to the left-hand side of his demo site, there were many different products or buttons of products that we also offer here at hh2. So as you can see in the menu, it says remote payroll, field reporting, human resources, field service. So if you're interested in other services that we offer, you're more than welcome to go in, do a little bit more of a deep dive and see what else we have. But today we focused on our document flow product. So Britton will just simply click on either the document flow or learn more, whichever page you like. As he clicks on that, up in the upper right-hand corner, he's highlighting features and pricing. He's just going to click on the pricing. We don't hide the pricing at all. It's just nice and easy to get to. It'll take you down to the bottom of the page where our pricing is listed. Now, as mentioned at the very beginning, I know it's been a long hour. Britton's done a great job. But one of the things to note about this system is one, everything that we talked about today was included: reimbursements, credit cards, AP routing and approval. In addition to that, we have unlimited users. Okay, so with other systems and other software that you might purchase, they may talk to you about user licenses or seats. Well, in hh2, in any of our products, there's no concept of that. We definitely have users and different user capabilities, but we don't charge you by individual users. Anybody in your company, once you sign up for our services, can be using the product with the correct permissions. So, and because our pricing model is a SaaS model, or software as a service, we simply charge a low monthly fee based on your actual usage in the system. So when companies sign up, everybody starts out at that top tier, which is 0 to 100 documents, or $159. That will be your complete upfront cost when you sign up for the service. Now, oftentimes when we're here, people will ask, well, what about upgrades to the software? What about, again, user licenses? How do you handle support and things like that? So I want to mention that, again, all of that is included. All of the users, your monthly support, your upgrades or updates to the product, the mobile apps are all included. So for $159, you can step your toe into hh2 to see if it's going to work for your company. After the first month, you can see the pricing tier, and it is based on documents that are routed. Now, although Britton's document today had 8 pages, that was just considered one invoice within hh2, or one document. Okay, the same thing holds true for that credit card receipt that he gathered as well. So that one document and that one credit card receipt counts toward the number of documents for the month of August, right? So let's say your company did 100 invoices and 200 credit card receipts that month. Well, you would fall in the 251 to 300 documents range within hh2, or $279 at the end of that month. Okay, and let's say the following month you rolled it out to more people, more users, routed more documents. Maybe one month you got up to 1,000 documents altogether. If Britton will scroll up there, you can see, again, you can keep scrolling through the page, but right there he has 901 to 1,000, or $549. So at the end of that month, we'll just send an invoice for $549. And then if you happen to go back and do only 300 invoices, you get the idea. We just bill you based upon the usage of the system, but you always have just a minimum payment of 159 if you didn't even have any documents in the system, but it's very simple. There are also no long-term contracts. It is a simple month-to-month subscription to our software. So what we like about this pricing model on the sales team is, again, any company of any shape and size can get into the software, see if it's going to work for them. If it doesn't work, if you're not having a great experience, and it's not helping to streamline that process, you can just simply send us an email with a cancellation request, and you can cancel your subscription without any ongoing penalties. But we've had a great response to this product. We're excited about it. It is one of our newer products at hh2. We also know that we've had some of our current customers on this presentation with us today as well. So we thank you for your business. And if you decide that this is something that you would like to use and you are a current client, you can simply get a hold of us here at hh2, ask us to add this to your subscription. We'll send you an invoice for $159 and get you going. So anyway, that's a long, you probably preferred to hear Britton for an hour, but that's a little bit more detail about how our pricing went.
Awesome. Well, great job today, Britton, and thank you as always, Kevin, for your additional insight. We will be converting this recording and posting it to both our YouTube and Vimeo channels, and I believe we also are still sending out links to the recording to all the attendees. So I do not see any further questions in the chat. So with that, again, a big thanks to the folks over at hh2 for doing this, and thank you to everybody that took the time out of your day to attend. Hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Cheers, guys.